psychopath. How many people do we walk past each day? Hundreds? Maybe thousands? I guess it all depends on where we live and how we go about our daily lives. And out of those we have encountered, how many people are capable of doing the most heinous of things without remorse? How many dangerous psychopaths have we come across in our lives? How often is it that only the victims know that they exist? And out of those victims, how many survive to tell the story? What happens when the victims are Johotsu, the evaporated people who choose to vanish without trace, for whatever reason? Only to encounter a psychopath. It was April 2002, the beginning of a new semester for Taay, who was a third-year engineering student in one of the best universities in Japan. He was not the top student from his class, in fact, far from it. Out of the 56 students doing the same course, he was probably ranked 50th at best. It was not because he was lazy, or that he was always out partying. Just the opposite, he was a hardworking student. You would always find him at the library or study hall, late into the night doing nothing but studying. You would never see him with other students though. He would always be alone most of the times, unless if of course, he was forced to work in a group project. The other students would describe him as being serious and quiet. No one had anything bad to say about him. He was law-abiding, generic by looks, not particularly fashionable and favoring only monotone clothes. He would show up as needed, never skipping class unless on days when typhoons came and the university had no other choice but to shut its doors. In other words, Taay was just a run-of-the-mill person who would not stand out in a crowd. What gave him confidence is his ability to navigate around society in such an unassuming way, a paradox to his inner sense, one full of arrogance. An arrogance of knowing that only he knew what had actually happened to the missing people that no one was looking for, or maybe those whose loved ones had given up on finding them. Believing that they had evaporated into the thin air, Johotsu as they would call it in Japan. Those who purposely vanish without a trace. When Ono Taay was 9, his parents had bought a camcorder. They had wanted to capture all the precious moments together as a family before it was too late. Because just a few months after Taay had turned 9, his mother was diagnosed with a brain tumor. Despite his age, his parents had sat him down and told him the truth about what was going to happen. Unfortunately, it had only taken 6 months from having a brain tumor diagnosed to the time she took her last breath. On the day of the funeral, hundreds of people came to pay their respect. In the midst of everything, unbeknownst to everyone, Taay had grown a fascination with the camcorder that his parents had bought. One that had kept him preoccupied amidst the grievances that the family went through in those remaining 6 months. Some whispers could be heard.
Oh my, what a poor child, to have lost his mother at such a young age. But have you noticed? Not a single tear?
Yes. I wanted to refrain from saying all that, but now that you've mentioned, he can't seem to put the camcorder down, recording everyone and everything around, even his mother, as she laid in her casket.
Did the father not tell him the proper etiquette at a wake? Oh my, what's he supposed to do? A man raising a child alone.
Was it the harsh expectation from a society to have a complete family whose child would grow up with both parents? Or was it love at first sight? Because not long after, Mr. Ono had found himself a new bride. For Taay, however, it was not the first time that he had seen Chisato when they were first introduced. In fact, just a few weeks after he got the camcorder, he had started practicing them on Chisato. It all started late one evening, when it was raining and Taay was home alone with his sick mother, who was fast asleep in bed. He was busy trying to work out the camcorder when he heard the doorbell ringing. Ding dong, he rushed for the door, and when he opened it, standing right in front of him was Chisato. Drenched from the rain.
Hello there. I'm Nishimura Chisato. My car has broken down right at the corner of the road. Are your parents home? I'm wondering if I could borrow your phone to call the service company.
Taay, who had left the camcorder running on purpose before opening the door, had pointed it towards the door. Just then, Mr. Ono, who had just arrived home, said,
Hi, you are at Ono's residence. What's going on?
Oh hi Ono-san, I'm so sorry to bother you. I just spoke to your son and asked if I could borrow the phone. My car broke down just at the corner of the road and I wanted to make a call to the service center.
Mr. Ono could not say no. Chisato, who had clearly tried fixing her car in the rain, was drenched from head to toe and had sounded desperate, almost begging.
No worries. The phone is just right there. You can use it.
And thanks to his kindness, she had arranged for the people from the service center to come and have it looked at. She was familiar with the street and lived just 20 minutes by foot from where her car had broken down. After hanging up, Mr. Ono, who had instructed Taay to get a towel for Chisato earlier on, handed her the towel and said,
Please dry yourself up. You can wait here for the technicians to come. It doesn't look like the rain would stop anytime soon.
Thank you so much. Oh my, I haven't even introduced myself. I'm so sorry for being rude. My name is Nishimura Chisato.
That night, Taay watched and rewatched the video that was secretly recording. The one that only he knew had recorded. He had studied the expressions of both Chisato and his father closely.
No worries, dry yourself up,
he repeated, again and again, trying to get it to sound right. But the most exciting part for him, however, was when Chisato sounded desperate, almost begging to use the phone. He did not know why, but it made him feel like he had control over her fate. Several years had gone by and the Ono family was generally calm and happy like any other typical Japanese family. Chisato was a good mother who woke up early to prepare bento boxes for her husband and now 2 kids including Taay when they had to go off for work or to school. The 10-year age gap between Taay and his little sister meant that there was not much in common between them, and so they did not hang out much. After all those years, one would think that after spending so much time with his camcorder and even buying newer ones, that Taay would transition into a sort of pro with his filmography skills. But that was not the case. Why, after spending so much time with his camcorder, had he not developed a skill beyond merely recording things for fun? Back to April 2002, when he was entering his 3rd year at university. By then, he had complete independence since moving out from the Ono's residence 2 years ago. He had, of course, kept in regular contact with his family. As they were considerably well off, unlike some of the other students, Taay did not have to work any part-time jobs. his parents were his source of income. He had two more important things to do, studying being less important than the other one. Melon was the Ono's family dog. He was the third one and the longest to stay. The other two, who were Shiba Inu and a Dachshund, had just mysteriously disappeared one day, after just less than a year. The family believed that they had escaped from the home when the door was opened, without anyone's notice. After several months of looking and printing out missing posters, they were broken-hearted. They had only decided to adopt Melon as soon as Taay had started university. By luck, Melon had stayed with them for several years. On the other side of town, however, the rest were not so lucky.
Please let me interview you for my university project. I am currently compiling stories from society around the neighborhood. I would like to get your perspective on this matter. This interview will be anonymous, of course.
He would go around scouting several homeless people, or people that he was sure were living alone and had almost no contact with the rest. Because he had done this a few times, he would know how to be very careful not to be suspicious and skillfully observe them for days or weeks on end. And by the end of the interview, Taay would gain their complete trust. After years of practicing social norms and even how to sound like a caring person, one full of empathy, he would ask a series of questions, on top of complete video recordings as mementos. He would then invite all of them to a warm meal. He would first offer them a drink that he had spiked with sleeping pills. When they had lost consciousness, he then drove them to different isolated locations every time, and waited for the drug to wear off. When they were awake, they would find themselves tied up, unable to escape. He would then relish in their final moments of begging helplessly, before ending their lives, showing no mercy despite his victim's plea. Unless someone got hold of the camcorder that he had so faithfully brought together with him, no one knew how and where he got rid of the bodies. The hours spent seemingly studying at the library was in fact spent on listing down all the locations on the map that would befit his heinous crimes. He would identify the most isolated location, as far away as possible from civilization, and drove there to check them out. He had also done research on how to dismember the bodies and dispose of them without a trace. For this reason too, he had carefully chosen the Johotsu. This was how Taay would spend his weekend. Then he would call his parents and talk like everything was normal. His family was very proud of him. That he got into one of the best universities in Japan, and it does not matter that his ranking in class were not as good as they would like it to be. At least they could boast the prestigious university that he attended. To them, it was all about not attracting negative attention and conforming to society. This was especially true for Taay's father. Ever since his first wife had died, and up to the moment that he got married for the second time to Chisato, he felt that people around him were being very judgmental about his ability as a single father, or that if he would bring up Taay in a proper manner. He had kept a dark secret from everyone the day he found out who Taay really was. While looking for a missing drill at home one morning, he decided to go into Taay's room. He never had any problem with his son taking care of his belongings. In fact, Taay's room was always spotless and nothing was ever out of place. He had also never questioned why his son was always bringing his camcorder around. All he knew and saw was that his son was immensely curious and interested in filming everything around him. He was the one after all who had encouraged Taay to record special moments in his life. With this in mind, he had wanted to watch the old videos that Taay had taken the last few months before his wife passed away. It had been almost 10 years since her passing, and while he thought about her once in a while, he wanted to look forward to the future with his new family, and so, he had only kept the memory of her alive, all within himself. Never in his wildest dream did he think that what he was about to see would be the unveiling of the beginning of a serial killer. A serial killer that had gone unreported. At least not by his own father, his flesh and blood. What he saw sent chills to his bones. In one of the videos, Taay was seen torturing the family dog before killing it. He was even seen dismembering the dog before disposing of it in one of the rivers.
Where is this place?
He thought. It was not a familiar location.
It must be one of those evenings when he told us that he'd be home late because of a school project.
It seemed that Taay had cycled really far to an unknown location and had disposed of the dog's remains in one of the rivers. He had a decision to make at that split second. Whether he should keep it to himself or make a report to the authority. Had he not been snooping around, no one would have ever guessed that his son was an evil psychopath that had the ability to kill an innocent animal. He did not have to guess about what happened to their second dog too. Mr. Ono did not want to believe what he just saw. He also did not want to know more and had decided to just leave it at that. He had decided to turn a blind eye on what he knew Taay was capable of doing, in the hopes that he would stop doing what he had done. Was it a coping mechanism? Or was he as guilty as Taay? Can he too then be considered a psychopath? Enabling his son to commit more atrocious crimes that would later involve humans? For years, he had anxiously waited for any news about the discovery of dead bodies, or for the police to one day knock on the doors of the Ono family residence. But even after a few years, nothing had happened, to the relief of Mr. Ono. He believed that his son had not done anything worse beyond what he had seen that fateful day. Until one day, in April of 2002, as he turned on the TV to watch the evening news.
A gruesome discovery of a torso, believed to be that of a man between 30 to 60 years old, had been discovered this morning by the local fishermen. Police are still looking for the rest of the body parts, and as of now, the authorities are still unable to identify who the torso belonged to.
Days had gone by and slowly, Mr. Ono had discovered that the torso found belonged to a gang member. The authorities could identify it by the tattoo on the back of the torso. It was of a man in his 40s, who had multiple run-ins with the police and was known to be violent. He was allegedly killed and dismembered by a rival gang. In that same year, nothing had changed for Taay. His grades remained the same, always ranking 50th at best in his course. His clothes were as monotonous as always, and you could always see him studying hard at the library. But if you look closer, he would be checking up maps. Of course, no one would suspect anything. He was just a run-of-the-mill person. The next-door neighbor. The only thing that had changed was, however, the body count of the missing Johotsu, who no one was looking for. Because they had vanished willingly, without a trace. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. I will be updating my videos weekly, so please stay tuned.